right, viewers, anticipation, speculation, suspense as the special session is on. Of course, both houses have right now will only reconvene tomorrow. The news break that we are getting in is the cabinet meeting is underway on the sidelines of the special session, and the big question, will the women reservation bill be considered? We're going to get you all the latest coming in. Let's go back in terms of just what has been the trajectory where the women reservation bill comes into question. It was introduced, cleared by the Rajya Sabha in 2010. Then it went to the Lok Sabha. It lapsed because it did not clear. However, the bill is still alive as it had seen passage through the Rajya Sabha. Now, the big question is the government actually contemplating to revive the old bill which is already arrived? If they're going to make changes to it, they'll have to bring it through the route of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha again. It needs to be retabled. Or are they going to go ahead with the old bill? Or, you know, the big question, because nobody quite knows, this is all a matter of speculation, in the realm of speculation. Is the government even thinking of a women reservation bill? But in the sea of possibilities, this has been the front runner. But what I can tell you, and my colleague Poulomi Saha is joining us for more. Poulomi Saha, tracking the cabinet meeting which is underway. Take us through, Poulomi, on what we can expect. A lot going on in terms of speculation as the cabinet meets this evening.
That's right. The cabinet meeting is currently underway. The Prime Minister just reached a short while ago, and then, of course, the cabinet meet commenced. It's obviously, drawn a lot of attention because of this whole suspense around whether there is more to the legislative agenda as far as the special session is concerned. Because remember that the government, when it shared the legislative agenda for the session, clearly stated that this is a tentative list of business. This is not an exhaustive list, and that's why there's been a lot of speculation. The Prime Minister referring to historic decisions that will be taken during this special session. The need to call this a session in itself again, because this is not a regular session. While the government is not saying whether it's one or the other per se, the opposition, of course, questioning technicalities. Clearly, the fact that the government has called this session for a very, very specific purpose, and it doesn't look like any of the legislative agenda which it has shared with members of parliament could be part of that special agenda, and hence the speculation has only grown as to what is that agenda. And like you were pointing out, much of it seems to be centered around women's reservation bill at the moment, Preeti.
Well, much of it centered around the women reservation bill. Will this be the historic decision that the Prime Minister was speaking of this morning when he said it's a short session but will be of historic consequence? But, Poulomi, I want to bring you an interesting. Right now, there's no indication whether it is the women reservation bill. But over the last 2 weeks, there's been so much speculation in terms of what could be the surprise that the government springs. And if it, in fact, is the women reservation bill, the opposition seems to be reading into that and already trying to take the lead or the credit with it happened. Sonia Gandhi's letter to the Prime Minister, where she put out the agenda of the Congress on what they would hope would be discussed, and women reservation bill was one of them. And after that, we've seen possibly every India Alliance party talk of pushing for the women reservation bill.
Well, as far as the agenda that was shared by Sonia Gandhi was concerned, it did share many issues, but specific to women's reservation bill, it was, of course, first of all, much of it, the noise was raised in recent times was by K. Kavita, BRS MLC. She, of course, wrote to 47 political parties as well and said that women's reservation bill should be introduced. She's been, of course, raising her voice for it since March this year when she sat on a hunger strike at Jantar Mantar Khattar. K. Chandrasekhar Rao, the Chief Minister of Telangana, wrote to Prime Minister Modi to introduce the Women's Reservation Bill in Parliament during this special session. He wrote on Friday, there has been a lot of pressure from the opposition parties that the government use this opportunity of this special session to introduce the Women's Reservation Bill. They raised it in that all-party meeting which was convened by the government yesterday. Ahead of the session, they raised it on the floor of both houses as they spoke about, today's subject of discussion, which was the parliamentary journey of the last 75 years. But clearly, nobody is outrightly from within the government circles, while nobody is saying for a fact that this is indeed, the agenda that the government has up its sleeve at the moment. Nobody is clearly denying it at the moment, which is why it's leading to so much speculation. The Prime Minister's reference to a historic decision, the Prime Minister's reference to women and their participation in our parliamentary democracy over the last 75 years, the fact that the Women's Reservation Bill is one of those unfinished agendas as far as the BJP under Narendra Modi is concerned. It was in the election manifesto for 2014. It was in the election manifesto of 2019. All of this, if you start joining the dots, it is adding fuel to fire. But clearly, we're likely to find out what exactly is that agenda come Wednesday, when the government actually gets down to business in terms of the legislative agenda for the special session of Parliament, Preeti.
Well, appreciate you joining us, Polumi.